Sergeant Adams, Sergeant Ace. This is an unclassified brief. My name is Specialist Leshovsky, and today I'm going to be talking to you about military and professional bearing. Our agenda, I will be giving you a brief overview of military bearing, what it is, how we use it, why it's important. I'll then recap and offer a time for questions. By the end of this brief, you'll be able to understand, implement, and teach military and professional bearing. During this brief, we will cover what military and professional bearing is, how we use it, and why it's important. Military and professional bearing is the core fundamental for how the Army acts, or how any branch of the military acts. It's the guidelines for the right answer. But to understand it, we have to break it down. The military in military and professional bearing is just that, the military, the armed services, the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force. Professional is defined as following an occupation as a means of livelihood. So it's following a job or doing what a job needs you to do. Bearing is the manner in which one conducts or carries oneself to include gestures and posture. So it's how we sit, stand, walk, talk, look, act. It's what we are. So when we say military and professional bearing, we really mean act like a professional. Act like a professional in a military manner. Do your job, do it well, do the right thing all the time. Military and professional bearing draws from a number of different sources. It comes from the Army values, loyalty, duty, respect, personal, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. It also draws from ADP 6-22, the Army leadership and the profession. Military and professional bearing can also draw from the leadership requirements model, knowing, being, and doing the right thing all the time. How we use the military bearing is not one little thing. It's everything we do, whether it's the customs and courtesies, standing to attention, saluting, putting your hands in your pockets, or unbuttoning your pockets, or leaving that stuff open. That still ties back into military bearing. As officers, they have one of the most vital roles of military bearing, and that's to steward it, to show it, to do it. Officers are the role models for the NCOs. So if the officers aren't providing good military bearing, the NCOs aren't going to provide good military bearing, which is going to affect the junior enlisted. As officers, they show good military bearing as standing to attention or standing to attention for those placed over them, or respecting your NCOs. They also are the role model for everyone underneath them. The NCOs are incredibly important to showing good military and professional bearing because they are the face of the command for the junior enlisted. That's who they have the most contact with. And they show military bearing by doing it, by respecting your soldiers, staying in the position of parade rest for senior NCOs, staying in the position of attention for officers. It's showing it so that the junior enlisted can grab it and keep it. The junior enlisted's job is to learn good military bearing, to watch their NCOs and watch their officers, and to follow their role, and also to recognize when they see poor military bearing and why they shouldn't do it. Military bearing is so important to the military because it's how we act, it's how we do things. And it affects how everyone else sees us and sees what we do. When a soldier is, if we go to this example in your slides, the soldier there is sitting and talking to a member of another branch's or another nation's military. And instead of standing there at the position of attention and talking to him in a professional manner, he's slouched back, he's got his hand in the pocket, he's relaxed. He doesn't really care about what's going on in the conversation. This is wrong. It's not okay, and it needs to stop. Soldiers who show good military bearing build morale, they build the image of the army, and they just build discipline. It's basis on discipline. Poor military bearing is a cancer. It infects the unit, it spreads, and it has a negative effect on the way people look at that unit, whether it's the community around that unit, another branch, or another nation's military. Doing good military bearing is simple. It's following the Army values, following the regulations in ADP 6-22, and following the leadership requirements model. It's standing at the position of attention for officers, standing at the position of parade rest for NCOs. It's doing the right thing even when no one's looking at you. It's having discipline to be professional at all times. The last reason military bearing and professional bearing is so important to the military is growing it. You can't teach military bearing. It has to be observed, it has to be respected, it has to be followed. So that's why it's so important for the NCOs to do the right thing all the time, because the junior enlisted watch them, they see them, and they do what they do. So if an NCO is displaying poor military bearing, his squad or the squads around him are also going to have poor military bearing, because monkey see, monkey do. In conclusion, we covered military and professional bearing, what it is, where it comes from as far as the Army values, ADP 6-22, and the leadership requirements model. We talked about how we used it as far as the officers always doing the right thing so the NCOs pick up on it, the NCOs doing the right thing so that the junior enlisted pick up on it, and the junior enlisted learning and doing the right thing so that everyone picks up on it and does it. We also talked about the good, how to do good military bearing, how to do bad military bearing, and why it's important to do good military bearing as far as growing military bearing. Any questions?